Yo, 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 what's going on, guys? It's Buns. Welcome back to the Road to Gladiator. Today, let's talk WoW PvP. Our topic is communication. Now, communication is around us in our everyday lives. We're human beings, we feed off of talking to one another. That applies to World of Warcraft. I mean, everything in the game, for the most part. There's so many opportunities in World of Warcraft where you have to be able to communicate with people, right? Whether it be 2v2 arenas, 3v3 arenas, playing random battlegrounds, playing rated battlegrounds, you have to be able to communicate with people, even outside of PvP, right? You can do PvE, you can raid, you can do dungeons. Talking is important, and it's being able to communicate information with your partners to get a better idea of what's going on, right? So this is going back to really the start of the Road to Gladiator series when I was talking about our big three topics. Our big three is communication, knowledge, and execution. Today we're going to cover communication because I feel that it's probably the most overlooked important skill set that you can obtain and get better at in World of Warcraft. Now you might say, HB, Buns, what the heck are you talking about skill set? Communication is a skill set just like anything else. You have to challenge yourself to be able to communicate. It is something that you can improve on, right? So let's break into it a little bit, guys, because it's really important for anyone that's looking to get better at arenas, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. How you can get better at communicating in arenas and how it will help you and your partners get better and be more aware of what's going on. So let's start off with just like a basic definition for World of Warcraft arenas. Let's apply communication, right? Communication is spreading awareness and knowledge to your teammates at the situation at hand, right? Now, this is important. You want to be able to get your teammates involved. It's as simple as, hey, I see something. Okay, in my head, I acknowledge that I see something. I recognize it, but being able to let everyone else on your team know that it's there. It's super important. And it sounds silly, but it's something that almost every single one of us, in just a course of one arena match, probably misses out on some details, right? And hopefully you have your partner there to back you up and catch what's going on, or the next time around you can be better at being able to communicate what's going on so that way everyone on your team has a better understanding. Now, I think that when you are going to approach arenas, and now let's talk about it from a 3v3 standpoint, right? What should be your game plan? So this should be your game plan going into a 3v3 arena, right? Let's say you're playing with two buddies. Before you even jump into a game, you guys are in a call. First off, I feel I should mention this. You should be in a call. You should be in voice communication if you want to talk to people. Typing while you're playing the game, trying to hit your keybinds. Come on, guys, that doesn't work. Let's just be real there. It's one of the biggest pet peeves that throws me off. Like when you're trying to play the game in the middle arena and someone's like typing to you. It's like, dude, I'm not reading the fucking chat, bro. Say something to me, right? So put yourself in a situation where you can talk to people, whether it is Curse Voice, Discord, Mumble. You guys got the cup and string communication going if you're playing next to each other. I don't care. Have some sort of vocal communication to be able to talk to one another so you know what's going on. Bingo. First thing you do, once you get into that call, what comp are you running, right? That sounds a little bit silly, but I'm going to use this. So what comp are you running? What is your win condition? And I think this is important, right? So you need to look at what comp are your three classes put together. Every single game you're going to be going against different classes and different comps, and there's going to be a little bit of adjustment to your game plan, matching what specs they have, matching what healers they have, how you can take advantage of the best comp, but you're going to have a general game plan, right? So if you're playing as Rogue Mage Paladin, you're going to get your kills through hard burst, big cooldowns like Vendetta and Glacial Spike timing at the same time with CC on two other targets, right? So have a game plan, an overall game plan going into matches. Okay, this is what we're going to come with. Talk about it beforehand. If you don't have to talk about it, that's fine, but I think it's important to get to know your partners and have some sort of a game plan going into it. And depending on what rating you are and what experience everyone has that you're playing with, you may not have to spend quite as much time doing this, but especially for people starting off, super important to have a game plan, especially if it's people that you haven't played with before. Super important to do this. Now, we're jumping into the match. We are loaded into a match. What comp are you fighting? What composition is the enemy team fighting? So if you go into the match and let's say it is Rogue, mage, druid, right? And you're playing as RMP. Well, your game plan is pretty much still applied, right? You want to go into it with, okay, we have our general mindset. In this case scenario, we're going to use our normal game plan. We're going to go and kill the rogue in a Hodge, have CC on the healer, have some sort of a game plan going into it. But if you get weird comps thrown at you where we're like, okay, maybe we're at a disadvantage in this situation, try to find a way to work around it. It's important to look at the comp because recognizing the comp will help you get an idea for next, what is your strategy? What is your strategy going to be versus this comp? Can you run your normal game plan, or are you going to have to make slight adjustments to be able to take advantage of the weaknesses that you can exploit in the enemy team's comp? And this is going to adjust game to game, comp to comp, and in some cases, when you get to really high rating, player by player in some situations, taking advantage of people's tendencies and whatnot can also be a part of the game as well too. So being able to adapt to that is important and will help you get better at the game. Finally, after you have this all mapped out, talk about what talents you're going. And this sounds a little bit silly, but I think in Legion now, there are a ton of honor talents. There's a ton of normal talents. You just have so many options on the table, right, guys? So it's important for a lot of classes and a lot of specs in the game to be able to sit there and be like, oh, okay, well, hey, I'm making a huge decision here, and I'm going to be running with X talent. So making your partners aware of that. For instance, one thing that everyone has to decide every single match, what trinket are you running? Are you running normal trinket? Are you running adaptation? Or are you running relentless? I can tell you, just from playing arenas for the past, few weeks of the season so far, I have died more times than I can count on both hands because I haven't told my partners that I'm playing with relentless and I cannot trink the opening stun. And I've learned that. It's something that it happened today. I died in a Hodge, a rogue opened on me. I died in a stun. Bad day, but you know what? I learned from it. I'm like, you know what? That's okay. I'm okay with that because I recognize it. The next time around, I can be like, hey, I'm running relentless. Let my partners know, get them involved, help them get some knowledge to what you're doing. That way, your overall game plan will be smoother and there's not as many surprises, not as many hiccups. You just want to have a fluid game plan. Okay, now the gates have launched. We are heading into the game. Now, this is probably the most important part. In-game communication. I like to call it situational awareness and getting everyone involved, right? So, this is important. You can have a great game plan, but you have to be able to actually execute in the game. Now, aside from just execution, there's a lot of communication that goes into this. So, let's talk about some things that you can talk about while you're in the game and information that's important to be calling out. Call out your damage, right? Now, I don't need to know every single ability that you're hitting in your full rotation. This is not PvE. People don't even do that in PvE. People just don't do that. If you're that kind of a person, don't do that, all right? But let your teammates know when you have damage, right? Relative information is important, guys. Letting people know when you have damage is good. That way people can sync up what they're doing, or if they realize, hey, this guy has damage, this gives me an opportunity to CC, calls that out. The next thing that I want to talk about as well, too. Call out your damage, call out when you have CC. Now, this is also probably going to tie back into what is your game plan going against this comp. And you may already have a game plan so you can jump into the opener and you have a great opener. And maybe it doesn't have to be said if you've already talked about in the game plan. But as the course of the game goes on, every game's different, every map's different, every player's different. Situations happen differently. It's not, you don't play 2 games on repeat in a row the exact same way, right? So being able to call out your CC, make adjustments in the game is super important. Now, when calling out CC, not only is it important to call out your CC that you're doing, you should also call out interrupts. You should call down who you're locking. But on top of that, this is something that I'm trying to add into my game a little bit more. If you have the opportunity to, also call out what kind of CC you're putting in. So if I'm playing a mage, right? Full sheep. If he's on no DRs, let your teammate know. Full sheep. Everyone in their head now is like, okay, 8 seconds. All right. Half sheep, quarter sheep. That lets everyone know on your team where DRs are at, and it gives them a time frame for, okay, I can jump in after that, right? And let it, so then maybe they can Hodge off of the sheep. Maybe they can blind off of the sheep. Another cooldowns to help everyone on your team know what's going on. Communication during windows where you have players locked out of the match is super important because that's usually when you land your kills. So you really want to make sure you're doing a good job at that. Now, On top of that, also call out enemy CCs. If you get CC'd, call it out. If you see someone coming in preemptively before you get CC'd, let your partners know, maybe they can stop it. For instance, one of the most common things that I see in World of Warcraft arenas is Resto Druids sneaking clones, right? Especially on the opener, right? Especially when they're playing something like RMP, or RMD, excuse me, where they're playing with a druid and the rogue mage opens, and sometimes the druid sits in stealth for a little bit, but they end up open cloning. Let your partners know, druids in stealth, I see him, he's out. Maybe it allows your mage or someone on your team to be able to go over there and interrupt him, stop his cyclone. Not only can he heal, but there's no CC coming out, gives you a more fluid opener. So if you can preemptively stop CC from happening by communicating, that is awesome. But if you do get CC'd, call it out. It's important for your teammates to know. Maybe they have abilities to help you out, or at the very least, they know that you are not able to help them at the time. Now, it's also very important to call out cooldowns. Are you popping offensive cooldowns? Do you have defensive cooldowns to pop? And with this in mind too, it's also keeping a track of not only when you're using your cooldowns, but also you're letting your teammates know when you have something coming back up again. So for my example, I'm playing an assassination rogue. Vendetta is like one of the most broken OP abilities in the game. And it heavily decides when my team has momentum. So being able to be like, I have Vendetta in 15 seconds. It gives people some time frame to be like, okay, this is what I need to use until then. Let's ramp up our damage. Let's pool together our energy till that Vendetta comes out and we can finish the kill second time around. Getting people to know what's going on, spreading information is important. And that's really what communication is spreading information that's going on. Now, I think the hardest thing is doing it real time, but listing off all of these will help you get better. Calling out your offensive cooldowns. When are they coming back up? When are you using them? Calling your defensives. When are you using them? When are they coming back up? Now, this only doesn't just apply to yourself too, but it's also something you can ask your teammates or have coordinated with your teammates. So if let's say that I don't have any offensives, I can ask, hey, do you have Bop? Do you have Bubble? Do you have something for me to help me out? Communicate between your teammates. If you don't know what's going on, it's usually good to talk more than less when you're getting started. Once you get comfortable in your play styles, kind of get used to one another, and you can kind of be like, okay, I know generally when he's going to use this. We have this worked out because we've played this matchup so many times. Maybe you can start omitting information, but I think especially at first when you're playing with a lot of new people, it's super important to have over amount of information, cut back when you need to after the games, something you can talk about later. Offensive cooldowns, defensive cooldowns, and enemy cooldowns. Let's say that it's something like a trinket, right? Call trinkets. That's important. Oh, you see big cooldowns coming out? Call it out. Bop's coming out? Bop, call it. Let people know on your team what's happening, and that way, usually when you get big cooldowns from the enemy team, that's a really good indication to see how far ahead or behind you are. So sharing that information will let people know relatively what they have to do to make up for it, right? Good. Next thing that we're going to talk about is positioning. Now, I think that this is one of those topics that people look over, right? So when you're in a game, this is hard to do. Recognizing positioning is a hard thing to do. And when you get into games and the pace of the game's going, everyone's in the heat of it, it's really, at times, I think, it's hard to be able to be like, oh, hey, you know what? I know this was our game plan and we wanted to hit this mage, but the rogue is in Zimbabwe and he's not our healer, like 80 miles away from anyone. Let's make a swap to him, right? And sometimes it's weird because we get into these situations where we're so fixated on the game plan, we're so fixated on what we had in our head, but opportunities arise. And it's really good to be able to call that out and give yourself opportunities, because more often than not, you will benefit from those. Maybe you land a kill, maybe you get huge defensive cooldowns, and may not even be from this person. Maybe you get an ice block from the mage over there, maybe you get trinket from the healer because he's so far away he has to make up for positioning. There are things that are going to happen spot on that you can make adjustments to, and it might not always be something you can take advantage of. Sometimes you may be out of position, and it might not even be you yourself. It could be your teammate. Let your teammate know, hey man, I can't help you here. I can't get over there to CC. You need to come closer to me so that I can help you out, or vice versa. Maybe you're the person in Africa. It's good to be able to rely on teammates that can keep you in check. Be like, hey, Buns, bruh, what are you doing, homie? Get back in the fight, bruh. I'll be like, oh, my bad. It happens. You know, it's a human thing. We get caught in the moment sometimes, especially when we're using huge offensive cooldowns, right? Or we know that the enemy team has very little defensives left. Sometimes we get so tunnel vision, we're like, must kill, that we forget what's going on, right? And that's usually when people take advantage. You want to keep that information flowing. Positioning is a huge part of it. You can get a lot of opportunities out of that, not only for kills, not only for getting cooldowns out of the enemy class, but also for CC opportunities too. If someone's out of place, maybe you just CC them out of the game and you create a 2v3, right? Absolutely a ton of opportunities that are going to happen. It's going to be different game to game, comp to comp. You just have to be looking for it. So it's okay time to time to break your game plan. If someone is making a huge mistake or taking advantage of the fact that you're sticking to this cookie cutter game plan and not doing anything else, punish them for it. Punish them. Do it. Good. Next. This is important. So positioning is really important, and this one's important too. Work with your partners. This is something you can do before the game and in the game, right? So if you realize, okay, this is the comp we're fighting, whew, we're going to have to line up our cooldowns really well. Talk about how you want to line them up. That way when you get into the game, it's in the back of your head. You don't have to think about it as much. But even when you're in the game, call out what's going on. Maybe something else happens. They use more cooldowns than you think, or you mess up. Call out what's happening. And that's hard too, you know. One thing that I think myself and for a lot of people that are getting into World of Warcraft, it sucks to call out when you mess up, right? Like, let's say I have a kick, I missed the kick, right? Call it. It sucks, yeah, you missed the kick, but it's better if your partners know, right? Maybe they can do something to help you out, and you know at the end of the day, you missed it. Whatever. Next game, move on. Try to do better the next time around. You know, it's PvP. You're playing against people. You're not playing against robots to cast, right? It's PvP. Call out your mistakes because it gives more information for what's going on, and it'll help your partners be able to adapt and give you a better chance to be able to get through that game and try to get the win. So that's important. After the game, that's pretty much everything that I want to cover in the game. So what we have is calling out damage, call out cooldowns, offensive, defensive, and enemy cooldowns. Call out CCs on both sides, whether you're interrupting, CCing someone, or you yourself are put into CC, or you see someone trying to put you into CC. Let your partners know. Positioning, take advantage of where people are standing on the map. It's very helpful if you're able to get a kill and someone is in Zimbabwe, like we said before, can kill them. If your partner's out of position, let them know. Try to get them back in. Put them on a leash. If you're out of position, play with people that are also communicating as well too to help you get back on track. Super important. Finally, we have being able to work with your partners. Talk about before the game how you want to line up your CC, how you want to go through your game plan, how you want to use your cooldowns, so that way you get into the game and you have the best game plan going into it. But in the game, also be able to make adjustments too. So if something doesn't go well, be able to line everything up as best you can in the game and adjust. Adjustments are going to happen. You need to be able to get with them and as quickly as possible. And by spreading that information, you're doing good. Now, regardless what the outcome of the game is, you are going to have something that you can improve on. Whether it is yourself, which more than likely you will have something to improve on yourself. But even if you play perfectly, there is probably something that you can tell your teammate that would have helped them. There's probably something that you could have done team positioning wise to do better. If efficiency is everything, if you really want to get nitpicky, there's always something you can do better. And I think it's important to have that mindset if you do want to improve, but at the same time, give yourself some leeway. And if you have a really bad game, just be like, whoa, 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 okay, we had a bad game here. What should we take as, okay, this is something we can improve on versus, oh man, like take things one step at a time. You know, Jordan Sparks, one step at a time, keep it simple. Try to look at what you can get better. Even in a winning game, it may only be a few things, but it might help you the next time around if you have that extra 2 seconds on your CC chain to land the kill against the better team, or it may not have hurt you the first time around. Efficiency is important. Being able to call out what went well is important, and what went wrong as well too. And I like to start off with what went well, because that way we can be like, okay, this is something that went positive. Even if the game went bad, we'd be like, you know what? Sometimes you are at a disadvantage with the team you're playing. You can be like, you know what? Okay, we may have lost this game, but I'm happy with how it went. And a few different things play out differently in the course of that match, and maybe we end up getting the win, right? So look at what went positive. What can we improve going into the game, whether it's a self-improvement or something that you can help your teammate with. Get people involved, And if you don't see anything that you thought you could improve on, or anything that you can immediately check as like, oh, this is something that I can communicate, ask your teammates. I'm sure if you don't have anything to see that you think you can improve on, and you think you're Mr. Perfect, I'm sure one of the other two people you're playing with can find something that you could do better, or you could do better as a team, right? Always something you can do better. Very adamant about that. Look to improve. Finally, and this is important, and this is something that I think is really overlooked. What did you learn, right? So whether or not it's something that went well or poorly, there's usually something that you can learn from every single game. Whether it's not, it's like, oh, hey, today, for example, right? We were playing as DK Rogue Mistweaver. And I was like, you know what? Let's try just going on this Resto Shaman, right? We were playing against a Feral, a Shadow Priest, and a Resto Shaman. I'm like, dude, let's just go Resto Shaman. They don't have that many defensive cooldowns, right? We can just go through them, get Link, and keep going. So what ended up happening is we went on the Shaman, got huge cooldowns from him. The Priest ended up taking Life Swap, which was great because he didn't play with Siphene, which gave us more of an opportunity. We worked through that. They got Link. We swapped back onto the Priest for a little bit, and then we went back on Shaman with no cooldowns, and we killed him. Specific example, but sometimes I think it is helpful to give you guys a specific example, to give you guys some input on my experiences and help related for you guys. So what did I learn from that? Shamans are a great class to attack because Shamans have the best cooldowns to support their teammates with Spirit Link and their Earth Totem, be able to absorb a lot of damage. But when you actually pressure them yourselves, if you have a super all-in melee comp, you can do well. And that's something that I learned today, okay? That's something that I learned. And it could be in a winning situation, it could be in a losing situation, but keeping track of things that you can improve on and things that went well, good. Keep track of that. And then let your teammates know, because that's the whole part of it. It's not only if you're getting better, you're only going to do as well as you are as a team. So letting everyone else know on your team is important. Super good. Really wanted to talk about that for a little bit as well too. Now, let's talk about a few more things to wrap this up, guys. If you are new to PvP, I'm going to say this. It's better to over-communicate at first than not communicate at all. So if you feel like you want to challenge yourself and you're like, hey, man, I need to do a better job of communicating, just talk. Say everything that's on your mind. Go, 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 go. Like me right now in this rant. I'm just talking about it, right? Talk. Speak. Be able to get the information across. Whether or not it's too much, you can talk about after the game. And that's what I'm going to talk about here is relative information. So I think it's better to over-communicate. But ideally, we want to be talking about relative information, which is when are you doing big damage? When are you using CCs? When are you using cooldowns, offensive, defensive? When has the enemy team used offensive, defensive cooldowns? Positioning, and being able to coordinate information with your partners. Everything that we covered before, but that's all relative information. Important to the matchup, and it's very concise. Two good things, right? Concise is important, so that way we're not flooding the chat with excess amount of communication, because that can get bad too. But as I said in the forefront, I do think it's important for people to over communicate and not say anything at all, right? You can cut back after the game, talk about what doesn't need to be said afterwards, right? In the moment, over communicate, it's good. More knowledge is better. Now, the last thing that I really want to talk about here is there's always something you can improve with communication. And I did talk about this a little bit earlier before, but I wanted to end on this. So it's an area in WoW where if you think about it in an arena match, right? You enter every match and you got to have a game plan before the game, right? And let's say the game plan doesn't go well. Make an adjustment the next time around, right? There's something you can improve there. Maybe there's something more efficient you can do. Take a different talent, take a different spell, have different coordination, have a good game plan. There's stuff that you're going to have to adjust based on how they play or what composition they're going. Adjustments. In-game adjustments, there's going to be the most amount of communication that you can do here because it's in the game. It's while things are going, while everything is happening. This is where your main focus should be. While you're actually playing in the heat of the moment, being able to communicate is important because really at the end of the day, you can talk as much before or after the game as you want, which is important, but being able to actually do it while you're in the motion, the heat of it, is the most important thing. So being able to communicate on the fly is the hardest skill set for World of Warcraft, and you should take as much accountability as you can yourself before you go and criticize your teammates as well too. Have a good mindset, be open to talking while in the game. If you feel like you could be doing a better job, do it, speak up, talk. If there's things that you don't even recognize, try to ask your teammates sometimes too. Hey, is there something I could be doing better? Did you guys see something differently that I didn't? Get involved in the game. Super important, and after the game as well too, talk about how the match went. Good, bad, what can you improve on? What can you do differently? Do you have a game plan going into it next time? Give your guys high fives around, and that's a game plan, boys. So communication, huge part of every area in World of Warcraft and in life, and the best way that you can do it is by throwing yourself in the mix. Get involved, talk, get your partners involved, get everyone working together, and you'll have a much better time getting to your objectives by being able to talk and spread information throughout your teammates. Whew! Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. That was a massive rant. I appreciate all of the support on the channel, guys. It's actually been nutty to see the growth of the channel. Appreciate it, guys. I will catch you guys on the next video. Keep it easy, everyone. Peace! Later, guys. Yo, 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 what's going on, guys? It's Buns. Welcome back to the Road to Gladiator. Today, we're going to be jumping into our 4th Arena Raw footage, and this is where I'm going to go back and give you guys some highlight games over the past couple of days that